By now you should be really familiar with programming the Crumble, as well as how to use a range of programming blocks in Scratch. One of the Scratch blocks you should be really used to by now is the if-else block. Do you remember how this helps your program to make decisions? If the test is true, the code here runs, and if the test is not true, the code here runs. So far when we've used if-else blocks, we've been used to sensing an input from the mouse or keyboard, and using this as the test in our if-else block. But when we're working with external sensors, we can actually use these to trigger our if-else blocks. Take these components as an example. These are both simple push-button switches, and we can use them to control the code in our programs. We'll be using this button in this lesson. Let's start by connecting a single sparkle to our Crumble, connecting the positive, negative, and digital wires here. We'll then add the required code to make the sparkle light up red. Easy! So how can we use our button to control our light? Well, let's start by taking a look at how the button works. On the reverse, we can see a diagram which shows how the terminals are connected. As the button is pressed, contact is made between the terminals. This is called a push-to-make switch, as when we push the button, we're making the circuit complete. So to wire this to our Crumble, we're going to need to create a circuit between one of our positive terminals and one of the input-output terminals on the Crumble, labelled A, B, C or D. These terminals can be used to sense for voltage, and when the button is pressed, voltage will be sent to that terminal. Okay, let's wire it up. We'll connect one of the terminals on the switch to one of our positive terminals on the Crumble, the battery, or another component, whichever is most convenient. I'm going to wire it up to the battery. This is now sending power to these two terminals here, and when the button is pressed, the power will flow to these terminals. We'll need to connect one of these to one of the terminals on the Crumble. I'll use input A. Now let's return to our program. I'd like my sparkle to be red if the button is pressed, and green if it's not. I'll obviously need an if-else block, which I can get from the control menu. I'll drag my first set all sparkles block here, and add another here, changing the colour to green. So what needs to happen for the sparkle to be red? Well, I need voltage to be sensed or detected on input A. If sufficient voltage is sent to this terminal, we can say that the input is high, and if it's not, if voltage isn't detected, we can say this input is low. So from the input-output menu, we can drag A is high and drop it into position as the question being asked by the if-else statement. Now when the code runs, it will ask if A is high. That is there any voltage detected on input A? And if there is, it will make the sparkle red, and if there isn't, it will make the sparkle green. Let's test it out by pressing the play button. As you can see, since the button wasn't pressed when the program ran, the sparkle lit up green. Of course, if I were now to press the button, nothing would happen, since my code has already run. Placing this within a simple forever loop will solve this. Now when I run my code, my sparkle changes colour every time my button is pressed. Of course, this button is just one type of switch. There are many different types of switches that can be used in different ways. Here I have a proximity sensor, which sends voltage to one of the inputs as something comes close. It's actually fairly easy to make your own switches too. Remember, all we need to do is send voltage from a positive terminal to one of the Crumble's inputs, A, B, C or D. Here's a pressure switch I made myself using nothing more than cardboard and tinfoil. I've connected the positive wire to the bottom piece, and the top piece is connected to input A. When someone treads on the switch, the input is activated. Here's another homemade switch. This one is known as a tilt switch. Here I have the wire coming from the positive terminal, and here's the wire going to input A. When I tilt the tube, the ball of tinfoil rolls down, completes the circuit, and sends voltage to input A. Easy! See if you can make use of different types of switches to control the colours of lights on your sparkles, or the speed of a motor, changing it from slow to fast as the switch is activated.